Welcome to this edition of Momentum. I'm Robert Green, your host. We're fortunate today to be joined by Mr. Stuart Saulters. Stuart is a 2008 civil engineering graduate from the Bagley College of Engineering, and he's currently Vice President of Governmental Affairs for the American Public Gas Association. Stuart, welcome to Momentum.
Great to be here.
Yeah, very happy to have you here. I'd like to start, can you tell us, how did you end up in civil engineering?
Yes, so a good question. When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. My dad's a chemical engineer. He worked at a paper mill for a lot of his career. Knew I wanted to, I kind of narrowed it down to electrical, aerospace, or civil. Actually had the opportunity to spend a day with one of my friends from high school. His dad's an electrical engineer. And I enjoyed the day. It was learned a lot, saw a lot of good things of what he did, but I don't know if this is good or bad, but I wanted to be outside. And so when you look at aerospace, electrical, and civil, the civil engineers are typically outside more than the others, and that was the deciding factor.
I hear that a lot from prospective students. They say, well, I want to work outside. So,
Right.
well, maybe civil engineering is something to think about. So I understand after you graduated, you went to work for Chevron for a few years. Can you tell us what you did at Chevron? Because I think most of us think of Chevron, we think chemical and petroleum engineers, not civil.
Yeah, and it was a neat experience because you're correct. I think typically Chevron, when I hired on, I was in a class with all mechanicals, all chemicals, maybe a few electricals. And there was actually only one civil engineer there when I hired on. And so it was a neat way to kind of use my education in a different way. I think just like a lot of companies, especially with the Mississippi State engineering degree, they appreciate the knowledge you learn and the abilities you show in having your engineering degree. So I think there was some that Chevron just said, hey, you went to Mississippi State, you got an engineering degree, we'll take a chance on you. I don't know if they would agree with that, but it was a great experience in using some civil engineering education. I worked a lot on the storage tanks at the refinery, so thinking about foundations, thinking about structural integrity of those big storage vessels. So there was some of that application, but a lot of what I did, and it was just kind of managing the project, ensuring the engineers that we contracted with that were helping us out with designs were following the right codes and standards, and so it was a great experience, and hopefully they benefited from my employment. I will say that they hired more civil engineers after they hired me, so I wasn't a one and done for them, and maybe showed them that there is some opportunity for civil engineers in that industrial setting.
Yeah, well, Chevron is a great partner with the Bagley College of Engineering. We appreciate all the support they give us.
Yeah.
What was your most rewarding part of working there? Was it being outside?
It was being outside, and when I did the interview, they do a site interview, and some of the younger engineers that took you around during that day, they made the joke is like, you get to work on this stuff, pointing at these big pressure vessels and this big equipment, high pressure, high temperature, and so that was really neat to be able to do that. But I think rewarding, like I mentioned, the most rewarding, like I mentioned, was that opportunity I had to work on the storage tanks, and so there was only one tank engineer, and so for a time I was down in Pascagoula at that refinery. I was the tank engineer, and so managed a big budget, both capital, so new tanks, as well as expense, repairing the old ones. So being able to kind of be the lead engineer in that effort, but then also work with some very talented maintenance guys, very talented operators. It was just kind of a neat team that we had put together to kind of execute on the budget we had to make sure those storage vessels were able to handle the crude that was coming in or the refined products that had yet to be shipped out.
Well, while you were a student here, you took advantage of what I think is a rather unique opportunity in the College of Engineering, and you went to Washington, D.C. as one of our congressional interns and spent a semester working with Senator Cochran, I believe. What made you choose to do that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I was very grateful for the engineering college having the opportunity. When I was a junior, I decided to run for a student association or SA position, executive position. I lost, and so I thought I was going to be busy the next year being that SA executive. And so when I didn't win, I saw this opportunity, had an interest in politics. I wouldn't have probably run for the SA position if I didn't have that interest. And so was able to pursue that opportunity and was, fortunate enough to get it. It was a great experience. Like I said, I had a little bit of an interest in politics, a little bit of an interest in government relations, but being able to spend a semester in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, working in a Senate office, it was a great experience, learned a ton, and really did kind of churn up that excitement about government relations and public policy that was buried down deep in there, but it definitely came out after that semester.
So what was a typical day like for you during that internship?
Yeah, so you don't have to get coffee. So all the rumors about interns are only good at getting coffee or doing that. There are tasks that you do that aren't menial. And it was neat. I think the office saw me as an engineering student, particularly civil engineering, as, hey, let's figure out what projects would make sense to use. So I worked a little bit on, with the other staff there on maybe at that time, Senator Cochran was really involved in the appropriations. So the aspect of Congress that delegates money to the different agencies and departments. And so you think about highway funding, you think about, the Farm Bill. Those were kind of things that appropriations chairman is responsible for. And so, there were some aspects that they were like, civil engineer, roads and bridges, let's pull you into some conversations we're having on the highway funding. And also, too, there was some opportunities to think about defense. And so worked with some of the staffers there on kind of memos or briefings that dealt with defense. And so if you think about, engineering aspects of missiles and structures and, Army tanks and everything, there was some application that I felt was good in translating over to what I did day to day.
So it sounds like you would recommend this
Absolutely.
opportunity for students if they get it.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have an interest. I mean, I recognize not everybody wants to go to D.C., spend a semester there, but at the same time, even if you have an inkling of interest, it's a very valuable opportunity that I think only a few students get, and so take advantage.
So after spending some time with Chevron, you eventually moved to the American Petroleum Institute. What precipitated that change from industry to sort of a trade association?
Yeah. When I was looking at jobs my last year of college here at State, I had the question of should I pursue politics or something in public policy or continue on the engineering that I'd trained for. Chevron told me how much they were going to pay me, so I was like, sign me up. I'll do this. But in the back of my mind, I knew that it would never hurt to get the practical field, real-world experience that you would get at Chevron in a future public policy, government relations type career. And so after that 6 years or so with Chevron, it just felt time to make the move. The opportunity was there at the American Petroleum Institute, or APGA, and so I took it. It was definitely a drastic, a switch in careers, but as I interviewed at APGA, my future boss, he was like, you're exactly what we need, because that practical experience is what's going to translate well into what we need at public policy. I will say, too, with Chevron, they were gracious. It's a great company, like we've talked about, and they were gracious enough in allowing you different opportunities. So I worked at the refinery for 4 years, and then I actually worked doing production and drilling and production of natural gas. And so I felt like I'd done enough of the industry that I was at least aware of the different aspects of it to make that move to public policy. Could answer questions or at least talk intelligibly about the various aspects of it in a government relations type setting.
So now you're Vice President for Government Relations with the American Public Gas Association.
Yeah.
What is the American Public Gas Association?
Yeah, good question. So there's actually about 1,000 public natural gas utilities across the U.S. Our members are in 38 states. And so the way it kind of breaks down is you either have an investor-owned, if you get natural gas to your house, as an example, it's either provided by an investor-owned utility or a public utility. Same with power. And so the investor-owned utilities are the ones, that you see, the Spires or the Center Points. But then you have the city, where maybe the city owns the natural gas utility. So the city is responsible for providing that energy to you. And those are our members. So in Mississippi, the city of Corinth, they own their natural gas utility. And so the city actually is the one that gets that gas to the resident or the business. And so that's who we represent. It's a really great trade association. I think the attributes of a public utility is they're typically smaller. Now the city of Philadelphia has a public utility, so that's obviously a bigger city, 500,000 customers. But I'd say most of our members are typically smaller, they're more rural. So growing up in Mississippi in a smaller town, it is kind of neat to give back in that way by helping those folks in Washington, D.C.
Okay. So we're getting close to running out of time, but I would like to give you an opportunity to maybe explain what role do you see for engineers getting involved in public policy, or even just public citizens getting involved? What can people do to be more involved in looking out for themselves as well as the public?
Yeah, well, the easy answer is both. So this is an election year, and by the time this comes out, we may be close or even past election day. So be sure you're an educated voter. That would be my first piece of advice. The second piece is, if you're an engineering student, consider a job in government. As a civil servant, you can work for the Department of Energy National Lab, you can work for the Department of Transportation. There are a multitude of opportunities, and so don't just forsake that opportunity for working for a company or a private industry. Pursue those jobs in government or public service. And I think we would all benefit from more Mississippi State engineers out there helping us out when it comes to enforcing laws or coming up with regulations or working in research opportunities.
Well, I certainly agree. I would like to see more engineers involved in public policy and helping set some good, sound policy for our nation and our state. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time and stopping in and visiting with us. I appreciate all the work you're doing. Wish you the best and hope things go your way during the election.
Thank you.
For all of you, I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Momentum. I look forward to seeing you again next month.